So let's take a look at some more examples of framing. Here we have the government collecting tax revenues from citizens and delivering public goods like roads and bridges and schools and the military and so on, but also social services to some segments of society. Food stamps, welfare, these would be social programs that will increase the opportunity to go to school, relieve hunger, uh, deliver health care, etc. Now, there are two frames for what these programs are. Mitt Romney, after the 2012 election, suggested that these government programs were political gifts from Obama to his supporters. So the idea was a sort of quid pro quo. If you vote for Obama, Obama will deliver these programs for you. Now, notice in that framing, these social programs are, yes, helping a targeted group of people, but not necessarily the entire society, right? And how are those programs funded? From the tax revenues, much of it coming from a different group in society who's not benefiting from these programs. So Romney's framing of these social programs is one of a political gift. It's almost a kind of a political corruption because the suggestion here is that these programs are helping just the constituency of the Democratic Party. Now, the liberals are going to have a different frame. So the liberals are going to say, wait a second, these aren't gifts, they are investments in people. Right? So investing in people is a good thing. So liberals will tend to see people down here as a public good. It is a public good to have it such that people are healthy, they have some money in their pocket to spend in the economy, they get a good education. That is a benefit to everybody. Right? So notice the liberals are going to argue that this transfer of wealth, right, through social programs to the poor is actually going to benefit the whole society. Now, another frame that we can think about here is back to these social programs, is whether these social programs are helping or harming. So the very same social program can be seen through different lenses. Take welfare, for example. Conservatives tend to argue that welfare can actually harm the recipients by undermining their self-discipline. Recall that was an important virtue in the conservative worldview. Right, so the very program that is intended to help people can actually harm. Of course, liberals are going to say, no, it really does help people. It gets people some money, and they're poor, and the money helps them do things and have a better life. Right, so notice, though, the very same social program can be seen as actually harming the recipients or helping the recipients. Be the way you frame it. Or take taxation. We can see taxation as payment for the public goods that the government has already provided. So if you're a business owner, right, the business owner didn't pay for the roads and the bridges that get the customers to the business, right? The government tax dollars have done that. So taxation is necessary to build the infrastructure so that businesses can flourish and so on. So we can think of taxation as payment for prior services, or we can think of it as theft. Obviously, the theft frame is related to an unfairness here, a felt unfairness. So conservatives tend to see too high a taxation rate as almost akin to theft, an unfair extraction of resources from a certain group in society. Let's recall the experiments with children on collaboration. You'll remember that when the two children are both collaborating, so they both have to pull the string, and then the food is unequally distributed, that seems to trigger a norm of sharing. But when the ropes are separate and they pull and the food is unequally distributed, they did not share in this condition. And it's kind of like a microcosm of two ways of seeing the larger society. Liberals tend to see larger society as a collaboration. So that would be one way they would frame the entire society. Everybody's in it together. And as such, if it is a collaboration, the norm of sharing is appropriate. Taxation is the form of sharing that liberals think is perfectly appropriate in a situation like this. And to complete their argument, the idea is that these folks are doing well in the economy. They ought to be sharing some of their wealth with those who are not. That happens to be a failure of the market system, liberals would say, and that's good for everybody. Why would they do this, say liberals? Well, that is what sharing is about. And if you're in a collaborative effort, that's what you do. You help each other out. Conservatives tend to, you'll recall, have sort of look at society as a competitive free marketplace where we pursue our self-interest. Sort of the idea of individualism is a core value for conservatives, for many others too, but conservatism seems to emphasize that. And so if individualism is the way we see sort of what's going on in society, then that's not going to trigger the norm of sharing. If individuals see that their position in socioeconomic status was through their own individual hard work and so on, and it was not a collaboration with others, well then the norm of sharing through excessive taxation is going to be felt as unfair. One more example of framing has to do with the concept of freedom. And so we can understand freedom in two ways: a freedom from versus a freedom to. Now, conservatives tend to embrace the freedom to notion. The freedom to save and spend your earnings, run a business without regulations, help only those who deserve it. In other words, the freedom to is about society, government, or other institutions should not be constraining one's ability to exercise their power or their resources. So regulations limit my freedom. Taxes are a constraint on my freedom, right? If the government is taking money away from you through taxation, then that's money you don't have. You're not free to spend as you choose. Liberals tend to see freedom from the freedom from point of view. Freedom from illness, poverty, exploitation, neglect, discrimination. So I'm not free if I'm sick, right? So I'm not free if my only choice for a job pays a low wage. Without health and resources and opportunities, I'm not free to live my desired life. From this point of view, freedom is really about empowerment, right? If you don't have resources and opportunities, you can't really be free. Notice that in all these examples of framing, the frames often are serving the interest of the individuals or the groups that they're affiliated with. So it makes complete sense that poor folks are going to understand freedom in a way different from folks that are better placed on the socioeconomic status. Notice also that, say, the conservative notion of freedom, the freedom to, fits with this notion of individualism, and that really society is a sort of a competitive marketplace, and we all sort of pursue our self-interest, and if we've got sufficient self-discipline and other capacities, we will achieve our success, and that is done through individual effort. And if that's the way you see society, then governments or the needs of other people are a potential constraint on your freedom to achieve success as you see fit. Whereas for poor people who don't have resources, they don't have the opportunities, they don't, perhaps they're sick, or maybe they're being discriminated against or just neglected, they don't even have those opportunities to live as they wish. And so for them, they're going to feel that they don't have the freedom to pursue their aspirations. Freedom requires resources and empowerment in order to pursue one's life goals. And so if you don't have those resources and you are saying you're not free, you're going to be looking to those who do have the resources. And so notice then the freedom from is going to fit with the notion that society is a collaboration and there is an obligation on the part of those with resources to share, to enhance the freedom of fellow citizens.